Hi everyone, Jessica here from Paper Ink Stamp and welcome back to my channel. So this video is a follow-on from my previous one where we looked at the Loklik IdeaStudio software. We did a detailed walk around just to sort of show you the buttons, show you the different sections that you can go to in here. And within that video, I said that we'd come back and do a separate video looking at these icons on this toolbar because I felt it warranted its own video where it then didn't get lost because it was quite a big video, that one. I didn't want it to kind of get lost within there. I wanted to have its own dedicated video, and this is that video. So I'm going to show you just demonstrate what they actually do, what the buttons do, and then I can show you some examples of how you might want to use them depending on what kind of crafting you do with using your Loklik cutting machine. So the first one we're going to look at is the Unite. So in other programs it might be called something different, might be called something like weld or merge, but essentially it's just connecting shapes together. It can be multiple shapes and then it basically just merges it all together to create one solid shape. So let's get some shapes on our mat. We're going to just do an arch and let's do a star. So I'm going to come into the properties of the star just to change it so we can really see what we are doing here. And you can see my stars on top. It doesn't matter which icon or which shape is on top here, but again, if we want to create just one solid shape, this is how you're going to do it. So let's say I just want to have this star on top of the archway. I'm just going to highlight it so we've got both of the shapes selected. So if you're doing any using any of these buttons here, you want to make sure that all of the shapes that you want to interact with each other in some way are actually selected. So we're going to do these two shapes here. Obviously you can do things like align them so we can center it horizontally so we can have it perfect. If you want to then just kind of alter it, so let's say that I just want to move it up a little bit. So you do want to make sure that you have the shapes overlapping, like you can see here the points of the star overlapping the archway. You want to make sure that that is the case because that's where it's going to unite together. That's where it's going to weld your shapes together. So let's just come back out again. So again, making sure that we've got everything selected, we're going to click Unite. And now it's gone from being, if I just undo that, you can see we've got two layers here. And then we're going to unite it and you can see it's all gone to one color. So it's all gone to black and you can see we've got just one layer in here and you can see that it's connected at the points where the star overlapped the archway. And that is now just a single layer there. So simply you're just taking multiple shapes, like whatever it might be, but you are then just turning them into one shape just all on its own. The next one we've got is subtract. So again, let's add another couple of shapes onto our mat here. Again, I'm just going to change the color just to make it a little bit easier to see. And we're going to do subtract. So this is basically whatever shape is on top is going to be subtracted from the bottom shape. So for example, let's say that we had these right on top of each other. So say I wanted to have an arch, but I want to have the star cut out from that. So I'm going to center it horizontally, center it vertically. So it's in there perfectly. Whoops. And let's just bring this up a little bit. So we've got both of the shapes highlighted now. Once we click subtract, you can see that once again, let's open our layers panel. We've got two separate layers here, two separate shapes. If we go to subtract, we've now got one shape, which is just the archway with then that star cut out of the center of it. Okay, so let's add another couple of shapes onto here. So we want the star there, and let's go back and we want our we want our arch just there like that. So the next one we've got here is unite at overlap, and basically this is welding the shapes at the overlapping points. Okay, so let's just line these back up again. Let's change our star color again just to make things easy. So you can see we've got an overlapping section just here. So let's just bring it down a little bit. Again, you don't have to be this precise with these examples, but let's just get it nice and centered there. Let's leave it like that. I think that's going to look pretty cool. So again, we're highlighting and selecting all of the shapes that we want to interact with each other, and we're going to unite at the overlap. So you can see that all we're going to have left over is the section where they have overlap. So again, if I just go back a sec, you can see we've got our two layers just here. Let's just zoom in a little bit to this one. So again, we are welding or uniting at the point where the shapes are overlapping each other. So underneath our star here, we've still got that curved top portion of our archway. Then we've obviously got the points of our star. So again, if we just highlight those, unite to overlap is only keeping this section. So it's keeping the section that is being overlapped, but we've still got that archway then from the arch underneath, and we have the legs of that star. So that is uniting at the overlapping points. Okay, so I've added the shapes again, and the next one is to subtract at the overlap. So essentially we're doing the opposite of what we've got here. So again, let's just bring down our star onto our arch. Again, let's just line that up nicely, make sure they're highlighted, and we're going to subtract at the overlap. So basically it's removed the section that is overlapping. So again, you might want to use this for things like if you're creating logos and things, this kind of look might be something that you're going for. Again, you're going to use this depending on what kind of crafting and how you're using your software. Not all of these options are going to be something that you're going to use for every project, or you might not ever use them, but it's good to know what they do. So if you are trying to create something specific, you will know sort of roughly how they work, and then it's just a little bit of trial and error from there. So again, this one is the subtract at overlap. So the overlapping points of the two shapes is then going to be the section that gets deleted out. So let's just move that one to the side and we can look at the next one. Okay, so again, we got our shapes on the screen and we've got subtract crossover. I'm not going to lie to you, I have absolutely no idea what this does. I've tried doing different shapes, different things with this, and I can't work out exactly what this does. You can see the same as I've done with all the rest of them. I've got them overlapping with each other, and yeah, so subtract the crossover to me is any sections that's on top of each other is going to delete that bit, but yeah, I just absolutely can't get it to work. So if it's something that you know how to use, leave me a comment in the section down below, and yeah, it would be really nice to know what that does. But as it stands at the moment, I have absolutely no idea what that does. So moving on to the next one, we have got the slice option here. So I've done the exact same things again. Just gonna center that, and we're going to make sure that all of our shapes are highlighted, and then we're going to click slice. And I don't know if you can see that, let me zoom in. When we slice that, you have this really faint white line pop up, which is showing you that curve of the arch underneath. So once we zoom out, what we can see now is we actually have 3 separate layers here. What I'm going to do for this bit, just so you can see, is I'm going to change the color, and you can see that by slicing it, we've actually now got 3 completely separate pieces. So it's going to cut any overlapping sections are going to be cut out essentially. So a little bit like this one here, where we then did the subtract. So we subtract whatever shape was on top from the shape underneath. If you then wanted to actually keep that star for whatever reason, I can't think of a reason off the top of my head now, but if you wanted to keep that star, then rather than doing subtract, you're going to do the slice. So if we did something, let me just zoom out again. So if we just go back, so we got our 2 shapes. If we just recreate what we did with the subtract, where we just cut out that star from that archway, if we do slice instead, when you come to do it, you've got your subtract, but you've still then got your star there. So say if you, I don't know, wanted to do something like create a little shadow, so you had it to the side, maybe you want to make it a little bit smaller, you could do something like that. So again, it really depends what it is that you're doing as to whether you're going to use these or not, but again, it's good to know sort of what it is that they do. So yeah, if you want to cut out the shape underneath but keep that shape, then you want to use the slice. If you don't want to keep the shape that you've cut out, you can use the subtract. And then we've got one last one, which is ungroup to layers. And this is basically for splitting up things like text. I have only really found a use for it in text, but it's basically then to split it out from one layer, one text layer, into multiple layers with all of the shapes. So we'll sort of see how that works now. So let's grab our text box. There we go. And we're just going to type in, let's just use my name, for example, and make it nice and big so we can really see what we're doing here. Let's just come down a little bit so we can focus on this. We're going to go into our properties and I'm going to change the font for this one. Okay, so I've changed my font here, like you can see. Again, let's just make that a little bigger so we can sort of see exactly what we've got going on here. And you can see if we go into our layer, you can see that it's just one single layer. It's a text and you can't really manipulate it from here. You can't really do much with it. If you wanted to cut this out and not have it be all single letters, so this would cut as single letters. So if we go back to our contour mode, you can see that this is how it's going to be cut out on your machine. If you wanted to have all of the letters connecting with each other, you would have to then manipulate this to do so. And to be able to do that, we're going to use the ungroup to layers. So if we go back to the layers, this is going to be the best way to show you how this works. You got a single layer. Once we click it, we now have multiple layers, and you can see that they've changed from being a text layer to a shape layer. So each of the letters is now its own individual shape and you can move them around. What I would say is you want to be careful with things like the E's and the A where you've got that centerpiece that's going to be cut out. So that is still, again, let's go back to contour. So you can see it is still going to be cut out from there, but because it's its own shape now, obviously they've gone black there. So if I just change the color and then so we're gonna have to move it to the top of the A, you can see there, and so that's the I. There you go. So this one here, so we want to move that one above the layer of the E, just so we can see for this example, we can see them. So there you go. You can see that these are individual shapes here, and basically then you're free to just move these around to get the kind of desired look that you want. So if you want to be able to manipulate your text, go into group to layers is the best way to do that. So that's what the buttons actually do in just a practical example, so you can really see what it is they do and see how that's going to apply to the crafting that you do. I'm just going to move these ones out of the way for the moment. I'm just going to pop them off to the side and we're just going to look at the text. So we're going to go back to the last thing we did. So this was then added a text box. We changed the font to something, that we want to use. And then I ungrouped to layers. And then if we remember, we have then all of these separate layers here. So let's say, for example, that I want to have all of these be cut out as one full piece, not as completely separate letters. So the first thing that you want to watch, you want to be careful of, is you want to leave these center pieces cut out from like the A and the E, for example. You want to make sure that you leave those in place while you're doing your manipulation. So what I would suggest is with letters like this is to group them together so they don't move. So I'm just gonna highlight or select both of these. I'm going to right click and I'm going to do group, or you can do Control G. And basically, if we go back into our layers now, we have a folder that's been created that's just got those two shapes in it just there. And then whilst being on the folder, I can then just move both of these layers around and they're going to stay together. I'm going to do the same thing for the E. Going to group those, and again that's going to stay together. So like I said, I want to manipulate this now so that it all becomes just one cutout. Let's just, for ease, change the color of our E here. Let's just zoom in a little bit and select this, and I'm going to have them overlapping. Now I still want you to be able to tell that it's an E, so I'm not going to have it kind of overlap too much. Just an overlap like that is going to be enough. And then let's do the same for the S here. So I'm actually going to just play around with this a little bit and have it be a little bit different. So I'm going to connect it at this point here, and so I could sort of connect it at 2 points if I wanted to, but I'm just going to connect it there like that. Let's change the color of the second S. So this is probably going to connect then at 2 points. Like so. Let's move it over. I'm going to do the same for the I as well. So I'm going to select both of those and group that because I just want that to stay in place really. And what I was hoping to do, right, so I'm going to ungroup that a second, and I'm actually just going to rotate just to straighten that I up a little bit. Obviously it was a little more slanted. I'm just going to straighten it up so you can see that I'm just overlapping the I with that portion of the S, and I'm going to do the same thing here. So I don't know, maybe if I talked about this in that last video, but when you've got your shape selected, or we've got our transformation box. You can make this bigger or smaller. If you come just outside of that, you've got this different arrow icon here, and you can go into rotate if you want to as well, but I'm just holding that down and just moving my mouse around. So I'm going to just sort of tilt it the other way, and that then means that my dot for my eye is also going to be connected into this. It's not going to be its own separate piece. Now for the C, again, let's just change the colour of that. So I'm trying to go for like a, I don't know, where you've got like higher and sort of lower pieces again, just to, I don't know, make it a little bit more interesting. So I can move that there. And then lastly for my A, again, you don't want to kind of change how the letters look. You know, if I did that there, that might look like an O. It might more look like an E possibly. So I want to make sure that I'm leaving as much gap as possible, but having it overlap that as well. So let's say I wanted to have it look something along those lines, something a little bit more interesting. Again, it really depends what it is that you're actually doing here. So we've got all of our shapes here now, and yeah, we've got them all in the place that we want them to be. If we go back to our contour, you can see that this is going to cut out. Let me just zoom in. And again, I did mention this, I believe, in the video last where we talked about text, but we've got these sort of overlapping sections here, so you can see exactly where it is overlapping. If you were to cut this, it's going to cut that piece there. So the bit where it's overlapping the J and the E, it's going to cut that as a separate piece, and we don't want that to happen. We want it to just cut as one solid line, because you're going to have lots of bits then kind of cut out from it. To get around that, we're going to use then one of our other buttons that we've gone through today. So what we want to do, I'm going to change it back to the normal mode. Now what I want to do is I want to ungroup any letters that I've grouped. So I'm going to do the A, and I'm going to ungroup that. That's become now two separate layers again. And the same for the E, right click and then ungroup, and our I was already ungrouped anyway. So what I want to do now is literally just select our letters, and I don't want to include any of the portions that are going to be cut out from the center of the letters. So I'm going to click the J, and I'm just going to do Control here to select the other ones. I'm going to do the S's, the C, the I, the dot for the I, the A, and then I'm going to skip this one because that's the center of the A, and then I'm going to click on this one, which is the E, and leave then the center of that one. And what I actually want to do now, because they're all overlapping with each other, I can actually unite these and have it be one single layer, one single shape. So if we click unite, we can see it's bumped up to the top. And now that is just one single layer here. So I'm actually going to drag it to be underneath our sections that are going to be cut out. And if we go back to contour mode, you can see here that this is going to cut out as one single piece, with then the center of the E and the A again is going to be cut out there. So again, I did show that in an example with the other video, where then I did a sort of like swoopy text, and we had the same problem. We had the overlapping pieces, and it was just going to cut those separately. So if we do another text box, I'll just show you that exact font that we had. So again, let's make that a bit bigger. Go into our properties, and it was this one here. This was just one that I had downloaded online. So if we take a look at this, this has, so we don't need to manipulate this in any way here. Let's just drag this down a little bit. It's already connected for us. So the only thing we don't have connected is, of course, the I's above the J and the I. Obviously, I've done a lowercase j here, but all of these are connected. When you look at it in the normal mode, it looks like it's just going to cut out like that, but it won't. If you go into contour mode, it's going to show you exactly how this is going to cut out. So any overlapping sections, it's going to cut that as a separate shape. So we can do the same thing for this as we did above. So to get rid of those, obviously we need to transform this from being a text to just being shapes. So I've got it highlighted. Let's go back into the layer so you can see it. I'm going to do ungroup to layers. And you can see now it's all separate, but because we already had the letters themselves were already connected to each other, they've actually sat in a single layer here already. So if we then move that underneath, you can see that we have more shapes here. So let's just see which one. Oh, Let's go back to this mode. So yeah, we can see here that we've got the centers already blacked out as well. So that first one, so we got our actual letters. So the first one is the dot for the J. The next one, so we've got 2 for that one for some reason. Then we have the section which is in the middle of the J. So again, let's just change the color to that. So you can see that one. The next one then is the section in the middle of the E. So again, let's change that color. Then we've got the S, and usually it is just going to go in order for you. The next one again is the next S. So we change that. Then we've got the dot to the I, that's fine. The C is fine. And then we have the section of the A. So again, you can see there, the black is just one section that's going to be cut out as one full pass. And then these, obviously the dots to the I and the J, and then any of the colored sections, they're going to be cut out separately. So again, if you want to weld your text or your letters together, that is how you're going to do it. A text box, you don't need to do like a single text box per letter. You don't need to do any of that. Just do it as one text box and hit then your ungroup to layers. If they're already overlapping, it's just going to keep it overlapping for you. If you then need to weld them back, or sorry, unite them back together. I'm used to saying weld because that's what the Brother Scan and Cut program says. That's their terminology. But if you want to unite those letters together, then you just need to ungroup it, select everything, and then unite it back together again. So that is just looking at the ungroup to layers. So the next thing I'm going to show you how to do is to create a rainbow. It's something that I've created in here before from scratch. It's really quite easy to do once you know how to do it and sort of which buttons of these to use. And yeah, you don't need to worry about importing anything into the program itself. So we're going to start off with an oval, and we're going to draw that onto our mat. So because this is an oval, if you click shift once you've drawn it, then it will snap into that perfect circle for you. And there we have it. So these little boxes that we've got to the left and the right on our circle, that's going to kind of indicate that middle portion of this circle, because obviously we only want half the circle to create our rainbow. So what I'm actually going to do is just line them up as best I can with one of the lines on the grid mat. Then we're going to go ahead and do a rectangle, and then I'm going to use the grids and just draw in a rectangle, and I'm going to essentially just box in that bottom half of our circle. So let's just change the color on that. So we can see all we've got then is this top portion here. And there's basically a few different buttons here that you can use. You can slice it. I'm just going to highlight those and I'm going to subtract it. So don't forget the top shape is going to get subtracted from the bottom shape. So I've hidden the bottom section of this because I only want the top. So we'll go ahead and subtract it. And there we have our half circle. So just as easy as that. So we've used the subtract option there. And then essentially what we want to do is just copy and paste this. So I'm going to right click copy, right click paste, and here it is. Let's just change the color here for this one, and obviously this is identical in size. We can come into, obviously it's already got our properties task open, but we can come into the size of this, and then we can come down. So that's 145 mil, so 14.5 centimeters. Let's say we want to go down by 2 centimeters. So we can use our arrows here just to bring this down. So I'm going to do 125. So we'll see what that looks like, and that's going to give us a really nice rainbow band just here. So I'm going to just highlight both of those layers, and I want to center it horizontally. But for this one, I want to align at the bottom. Obviously, I don't want to align it vertically because then it's going to go in the center. I want it to line up at the bottom. So we're going to have it there. So now we've got those lined up perfectly. You can see how this is going to come together, and you could just go ahead and now create all of your arches here, but we're going to do the cutting as we go along because I just think it's a little bit easier here. So what I'm going to do is leave that exactly where it is. It's lined up perfectly how I want it to be. I'm going to highlight both of them again, so we've got both the shapes set up, and I'm going to slice into this. And if we remove then our top, we just get left with the semicircle ring, if you like, for that top portion. And then we still have, so rather than subtracting and we would have lost our shape here, we've kept this one. And again, then we can just line that back up. We can just center it horizontally, align it at the bottom, and it's lined up again perfectly. And we're just going to repeat that process. I'm going to copy the smaller one. I'm going to paste it. Let's change the colour of it. Let's just go for a nice pink. And we're going to come down. So again, I'm going to come down. You can type in here as well. Oops. So I'm going to go 105. And again, then I'm just going to highlight all of it, align to the bottom and align the center. And now I'm just going to use my layers bar here because I just want to select the top layer, so the pink layer and the purple layer. And I'm going to do the same thing again where I'm going to slice it. And if we bring this one down, you can see we have our lovely rainbow arch there. And you can do this as many times as you want. So for this last layer here, I'm actually going to subtract that because this is going to be my last archway that I want to create. I don't need that section in the middle. Then I'm just going to go ahead again, center it horizontally, align it with the bottom, and there is our rainbow. So let's just change that color. Let's just do a nice blue at the back there. And that is how you create a really simple rainbow, just using the circles in there. And again, then we used a couple of the shapes. So we used slice and then we used subtract right at the end. And we've used our align buttons there as well. So hopefully this video was helpful in, again, just understanding your Loklik IdeaStudio software a little better, what these actual buttons do. I've got a couple more that we're going to do in terms of using the offset. So with things like this rainbow here, that offset will come in handy for something like that. And again, with the text as well. But again, we'll cover that in another video. But hopefully that was just a really great understanding and practical way then of actually using those buttons there. So if you want to see more content like this, it's not the only content I do here on my channel. I do like card making and other paper crafting, but if you hit that subscribe button, it'll notify you when I've uploaded a video, and you know, it may be part of this series again if that's what you're interested in watching. But let me know in the comment section down below what you think. Have you got this software? Have you got a Loklik machine? I'd love to know, and obviously if you've got any questions there as well, I can try my best to answer those as well. So that's going to be it for this video. So thanks very much for watching and happy crafting.